Dr. Umar Johnson, welcome back, as Malik Shabazz just said.
Good to be back, and love to everyone.
I got to ask you, though, let's talk about your trip, because you went to the UK, Paris, Azania, or South Africa. What was the response? Because you were throwing down some knowledge that probably most of those folks have never heard, especially for an American.
Yes. Well, all three places were definitely phenomenal. I was well received, packed out events everywhere. The occasion that brought me to Manchester, England, was the commemoration of the 1945 Fifth Pan-African Congress, which took place in Manchester. It included such notables as Amy Ashwood Garvey, also W.E.B. Du Bois, Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta. They were members of the South African ANC present, and it was that Congress more than any other since the days of the Honorable Marcus Garvey that is credited with actually finally coming up with the formula to disintegrate and remove colonialism in Africa. So this was the 70th anniversary, and I was humbled by the invitation to come and be the keynote speaker. So that was very powerful. Two issues that came up that were not resolved and probably will echo for some time. The first was homosexuality and the role of the homosexual in the Pan-African movement. And the other issue was the role of white people or non-Africans within the Pan-African struggle. Now, obviously, I represent the Garveyite school of Pan-Africanism, so we don't have any issues with either one of those topics. We reject both of them. However, when you understand the history of the Pan-African Congresses, which were largely taken over by W.E.B. Du Bois after the first one was held by Henry Sylvester Williams, W.E.B. Du Bois' Pan-Africanist Congresses were often integrated. You know, they were often attended by non-African people. So I could see the contradiction because you have the Garveyite international conventions versus W.E.B. Du Bois Pan-African Congresses. And so I guess there was a little bit, of uncertainty as it relates to the ideological position. But again, Pan-Africanism has been so adulterated and watered down over the past couple of years that people kind of forget what it originally stood for. But again, representing the Garveyite school, it was important for me to go there and just refresh everyone's mind exactly what Pan-Africanism was, what it is, what it needs to be, and most importantly, what the Garveyite position is on these issues. But it was powerful, magnificent, good information, presentations on the role of Garvey, presentations on the history of the Pan-African Congress. But one of the scholars that he wrote a book on it that I now have on the 1945 conference. It was powerful. But other issues of feminism came up. So it was reflective of the current political dynamic that we face as Black folk, all these different, I would call them distractions, whether it's feminism, the homosexuality, the role of non-African people. A lot of that stuff came up in the Congress, but I think it was necessary because we got to work through it.
Now, the issues that they have in the UK, in Paris, in South Africa, Azania, are they the same issues that we have here in the States?
Pretty much they are, especially in South Africa, and as well as in France, as well as in England. I mean, what white supremacy does anywhere, white supremacy does everywhere. So the big issue in South Africa now, as you saw the students in South Africa, they had a massive walkout protest movement, which was very impressive because all the African students, just about all the African students across the entire country, walked out of school together and they boycotted together and they protested together in an attempt to keep the university system from hiking up the fees. The university system wanted to hike up the fees on Black students who can barely afford the education already, and that was done on purpose. The same way they do it here in America, and the purpose of raising the tuitions is to make it beyond the reach of Black children. This way, when you don't have enough African representation in certain professions, you can simply blame Black people and say, well, they didn't go to college, so we don't have enough licensed doctors, licensed attorneys, licensed psychologists, so forth and so on. So the new racism has to put opportunity beyond the reach of the victim so they can blame the victim for why they don't participate. So that's why the fees wanted to be jumped in South Africa, because we're 20 years after apartheid. So now they have to come up with a neo-colonial system that basically makes it appear that it's not the white man who's responsible for the racism anymore. Hiking the fees was one such strategy to remove Blacks out of the professional sphere of South Africa. Same thing they do here. The other thing that was interesting is Chinese people. Chinese people in South Africa are now considered Black. they have upgraded their status to black. So now, just like in America, where homosexuals, Latinos, and everybody else can consider themselves minority and thus fight for the rights that are rightfully due to African people by virtue of the struggles of our ancestors, which is ironic because I'm in Montgomery, Alabama now. But they're doing the same thing over there. They are reclassifying certain non-African groups of people so they can get the same rights and opportunities as the indigenous Africans of South Africa. Same thing they do here with the gays and Latinos, they're doing with the Chinese in South Africa. And they've just introduced Mandarin, which is one of the most spoken languages in the world. They just introduced Mandarin as an official language in South African schools. So why would this language of an Asian people be introduced into a land where the people are 90% African, if not greater, you see? So again, they're paving the way to bring in Mandarin people, Chinese people into South Africa, as well as East Indians, to eliminate black people from the economic sector as a prelude to mass incarceration as well as extermination. They're doing the same thing there. And so one of my messages to the brothers and sisters in South Africa was you need to study the black American reality. You really need to study our political dynamic since the end of slavery, and particularly since the end of the civil rights movement, because everything they did to us in America, they're doing to you guys now. You're only 20 years into your freedom. We are 150 years into our freedom. Please don't make our same mistakes.
Yeah, but in South Africa, the East Indians are always there. They're all on the eastern side, and the eastern part of Cape Town as well. But the Chinese, people are scratching their heads listening to what you're saying. With a black country controlled by blacks, yet they're giving the Chinese equal footing. What's behind all this?
Well, again,
I'll tell you what, hold that thought right there, Dr. Umar. We got to take a quick break. I'll let you respond to that because, that's kind of bewildering. A black-run country, and they're giving the Chinese equal footing. 800-450-7876. You too can get in on this conversation with Dr. Umar Johnson. We'll take your calls. Next is a big show. Rolls on from 1450 WOL, where information is power.
What's wrong, Tina? Where are you coming from?
I am just coming from the dealership, getting my Mercedes-Benz service. Do you know it cost me $500?
$500? Girl, you should have gone to Magic Benz in Hyattsville. Their A services are only $250, and B services start at just $250. They are my premier specialists and have up to 40% off dealer prices and 100% satisfaction guarantee.
But how did I miss this?
But there's more. They offer professional services, tire replacement, balance and rotation, engine cooling system flush, body work for all Mercedes, and more. Their oil changes are only $99.
Michelle, say no more. What's their info?
It's Magic Benz at 4716 Baltimore Avenue, Hyattsville, Maryland. Their number is 301-985-2676, or go to their website at magicbenzservice.com. Thank me later.
No, I am thanking you now.
WOL family, have you ever had questions around improving your cash flow, investing in the stock market, or determine if you're really on track and ready to retire? Then this is the place where you can get all of your answers. Hi, I'm Kiva Sturdivant, financial expert and host of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. If you're ready to reinvigorate your wallet and transform your finances, tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. right here on 1450 WOL.
I'm Karen, and two very important people in my life, my husband and my father, have been diagnosed with atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation, or AFib, is a type of irregular heartbeat. People with AFib are 5 times more likely to have a stroke than people without AFib. Talk with a healthcare professional today about your risk and learn how to manage AFib to prevent a stroke. Visit stroke.org/AFib to learn more.
Real Talk Radio in the AM.
The #1 morning show. #1 on everybody list.
Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
Thank you for staying with us, folks. I'm guest. He's Dr. Umar Johnson. He's the Prince of Pan-Africanism. He's a direct descendant of Frederick Douglass. His best-selling book is The Psychoacademic War Against Black Boys. He's a certified child psychiatrist. That's his day job, if you can say that. But he's one of the most requested speakers on the circuit these days. If he's coming to your town, and before we leave, I'll let him give you the list where he's going to be. You need to go out and see him, because a lot of stuff that we talked about can't talk about on the radio. You have to hear it in person. 800-450-7876 number to call to speak to him. Dr. Umar, before he left, and my question was, in a country that's controlled by blacks, supposedly, why are they giving the Chinese equal footing with blacks?
Well, the country isn't controlled by blacks. One of the biggest contradictions that was discussed everywhere I went in South Africa, and we probably had at least 15 different events in 15 different sections of the country, was the role of Nelson Mandela and the fact that many of the people in South Africa, and this was very clear to me, when I got there, I expected him to be hailed as a hero. He was not, definitely not by the grassroots people. Many of them considered him a sellout. You know, they said that he stopped short of what he should have done. Now, this was kind of contentious because I maintain that the young Nelson Mandela who went into prison is still a hero of mine. And I also asked the brothers and sisters to express some degree of restraint in their criticism so as not to totally condemn the man out of the interest of our children to be able to need to study his example and correct the mistakes that he made. And, you know, same thing we do here in America. Rinse off the baby with the bathwater. We got to recognize that there's good and there's bad. There's mistakes as well as some very great things that a lot of our leaders done. That tendency to consider someone totally bad or totally good is something I see internationally when I travel. You know, so, but I did agree, and I told them I agreed with the fact that they considered him, you know, to definitely have not done what he should have done when he got out of prison. But the point that I tried to make was it wasn't Mandela's fault alone. He was part of a party, the African National Congress, and many of those people who were around him are still alive, and they're still in that party, and they're still helping to lead the country. So for me, it's not so much about one man. It was not about Nelson Mandela's contradictions. It was about the contradictions and mistakes that were made by the African National Congress. And so, again, you know, going back to something Brother Malik said earlier, we have to look at the movement, the mistakes that were made by the movement, you know. So that was one thing I tried to get across to the brothers because I'm very sensitive about condemning an entire legacy that a person leaves. Without question, Mandela, who came out of prison, wasn't the one who went in. But again, there's another mistake that the people have to earn up to, and the same thing here in America, and that is having our elderly lead the movement. You know, I do not think Nelson Mandela should have been the leader at that age, just like I do not think Minister Farrakhan should be the leader at his age. You know, that's my opinion. When people get older, they tend to relax in their positions. They're not as radical. You know, they're not as unapologetic. You know, no one at that age is interested in going to jail. You're not interested in losing your life, which is why in most cultures there's a transition of leadership from the elderly to the adults and then to the youth. But in the black reality, here, there, and everywhere, whether it's South Africa, England, Nigeria, where I'll be next month, we don't have that because of that ego, you know, and that failure of an intergenerational protocol that transfers leadership from one place to the other. South Africa, Carl, 87% of the wealth of South Africa is still concentrated in the hands of the same corporations who dominated apartheid and created apartheid. The Dutch, the British, followed by the East Indian and the Chinese. Those are the top four wealth owners in the Republic of South Africa. So the brothers and sisters are correct. Nothing has changed. They simply gave them the vote, but they kept the wealth. The two largest corporations in South Africa own more wealth than the bottom 30 billion South Africans in the country. Two corporations have more wealth than a third of the entire population. It's not fair. And what I told the brothers and sisters in South Africa, and I had a chance to speak with the student protesters at the University of the Western Cape, and that is, as you protest to keep the fees down, you have to protest for blacks in South Africa to get their equal share of South Africa's wealth. I told them, don't make the mistake we made. Black people in America thought getting a vote made them equal. Getting a vote does not make you equal. Getting a vote only gives you the false illusion of inclusion, the belief that you're participating in an economic reality in which you are not. South Africa doesn't need democracy. South Africa development. The education is great, but the wealth is better because many of those students who are protesting will not be able to find a job after they finish their education. So it's about wealth. Same thing for Black America. December 6th, Carl, we're celebrating 150 years since the passing of the 13th Amendment. 150 years, and we still are stuck with less than 0.5% of the wealth of this country. Stop fighting for political rights and start fighting for economic rights.
You know, I think our people are waking up. That's something that Dr. Anderson's been saying, and a lot of our power talkers have been saying. But I want to go back to South Africa real quick. Winnie Mandela, was she favored more than Nelson Mandela to the grassroots people that you dealt with?
Yes, without question. In fact, I was supposed to meet Queen Mother Winnie, but when I was in Joburg, she was in Cape Town. When I got to Cape Town, she had to go back to Joburg, so we kept missing each other. But God willing, I'll get a chance to meet her when I do return. But without question, she's a hero. One of the things that I found out, because I stayed in Soweto for most of my trip, one of the things that I found, and I went to the Mandela family restaurant there, where I had an opportunity to view Winnie's scrapbook. So she kept a scrapbook on all the newspaper write-ups on her and Nelson and so forth and so on. She wasn't at the restaurant because she was in Cape Town when I got there, but I had a chance to go through that. And one of the things that I learned was after Nelson Mandela got out of prison, neither he nor Mbeki, his replacement, neither one of them really gave her the type of respect that she was due. It wasn't until the current president, Zuma, actually gave her the respect that was due, gave her security, a private car. He elevated her to the level of mother of a nation. And I found out from the brothers and sisters there that neither President Mandela or Mbeki gave her that respect. She was basically on her own during their presidency with really no type of protection, security, or anything like that. So although, President Zuma, without question, is being compromised and controlled by the white economic elite of South Africa, I do have to respect him for the fact that he finally gave her the respect that was due, that his two predecessors did not.
All right. Coming up, we're going to talk about this Black Friday blackout. And Brother Malik says you're on board with that. And they're trying to get the message to the younger people. And that's why they look to you, because the young people look up to you. The hip-hop generation at least look up to you, Dr. Umar. How can we get this message across to the young people to get involved in this Black Friday boycott?
I think by letting them know. I think there's a lot of young people who do support it without question. I've been spreading the energy as I travel, so there's going to be a lot of people, who are definitely going to be on board with this and who have the discipline to carry it out. Because there's one thing to say, there's something else to do. And as you know, one of the Achilles heel of black people has always been our economic discipline. We lack economic discipline more than any other type of discipline, and we got discipline issues across the board. And one thing we got to recognize is we will not be able to determine the impact of the boycott by looking at mainstream news. We got to recognize that the American social order has no interest whatsoever in calculating the impact on the economy of African people who boycott the holiday season. So CNN will make no reference to this. Don Lemon will blitzer. There will be no reference to this in USA Today, Headline News, the New York Times. So we have to know that we made the difference, because one thing about propaganda, they have to be very careful of giving any sort of positive inclination to people who try to rise up. So we have to
hold that thought right there. We'll see if we get in a better spot on your phone, because sometimes you're fading in and out. When we come back, we got a bunch of folks want to speak to you. Ayo, you're up next. 800-450-7876. You too can join the conversation with Dr. Umar Johnson. We'll take your calls after the news update on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning, I'm Mike Fortier. Here's the latest from News1.com, brought to you in part by Robitussin. Robitussin soothes your throat and delivers fast, powerful cough relief. Robitussin, because it's never just a cough. President Obama will award the Medal of Honor to a U.S. Army veteran and University of Maryland grad today. In a White House ceremony, Captain Flo Groberg will receive the nation's highest military award for heroism in Afghanistan in 2012. Groberg, credited with saving the lives of fellow troops during an ambush in the Kunar province. Groberg badly injured in the attack. He'll be the 10th living recipient to be awarded the Medal of Honor for actions in Afghanistan. Groberg, a naturalized U.S. citizen born in France and raised in Montgomery County. Veterans letting the White House know how they feel about medical marijuana. Dozens of servicemen and women marching in D.C. yesterday dumped a large box of empty pill containers, calling on officials to make medical marijuana available to veterans. The group argues VA hospitals are over-medicating veterans with a large number of psychoactive medications to treat PTSD. President Obama paying tribute to America's veterans yesterday.
This day is not only about gratitude for what they have done for us. It is also a reminder of all that they still have to give to our nation and our duty to them.
In a Veterans Day ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, the president says vets represent an unbroken chain of patriots throughout the history of the U.S. The president opens the ceremony by taking part in a wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknowns. President Obama also urging businesses to hire more veterans. Terry Moore reports.
they get stuff done.
In a Veterans Day ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, the president said vets can perform multiple jobs under pressure.
Our veterans are some of the most talented, driven, capable people on earth.
I'm Terry Moore in Washington.
This report brought to you in part by Compassion International. You can change the life of one child in poverty today when you become a sponsor with Compassion International. Find out how at compassion.com/radio. I'm Mike Fortier. When you're looking for news for Black America, go to newsone.com.
Good morning. This traffic update is brought to you by George Mason Basketball. Beltway delays continue on the outer loop beginning from Andrews as you head up toward 50. The earlier crash at 50 now cleared, but seeing the residual delays from that stretch. Outer loop at Colesville, we have the disabled vehicle right in the center lane off to the right. Your delays start from 95, and also DC 295 heavy southbound between Eastern Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue. Get ready for George Mason Basketball at Eagle Bank Arena. New coach, new season. Buy your season tickets or 3-game mini plan at wearemason.com. This weather update is brought to you by the Foundation for a Better Life. Winston Churchill's words stirred his country in the face of defeat. Today they inspire us to reach for our own victories. Commitment, pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com. Today mostly cloudy skies will continue, showers around, highs reaching the mid-60s. Tonight clear and breezy, lows near 50. Right now it's 53 degrees. I'm Tony Thornton for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Your voice can now be heard. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
With Carl Nelson weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
Thank you for staying with us. 23 away from the top of the hour. Our guest is Dr. Umar Johnson. Dr. Umar is building a school for boys, a black school for boys. We're going to talk to him about that momentarily. But let's go to line 4. Ayo's joining us. Ayo, on the road somewhere. Ayo, where are you?
Good morning, Brother Umar. We met in Pennsylvania a number of different times. I've definitely been a giver to the university. But I also want to point out we are at a pivotal time in black history in America. Missoula University has made a statement that young black people have really begun to attach themselves to. Because when you could take your position and manipulate their money because of the statement, then you have really opened the doors for this Black Friday's transformation. Dr. Umar Johnson is absolutely right. We can't expect white news agencies to respect what we're doing. And last year, even when we did this, the first thing they said, sales were down. Okay, they weren't down. That was the rippling effect of black dollars not being in the market. So my question to you, Dr. Umar, is this. How do we get older people to understand not only do young black people see what's happening and understand the power of what Missoula means to the statement they're making in history? And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Well, the thing with older black people is that they're already conditioned. One of the reasons why we're seeing so many youth do what they do, whether it's Ferguson, whether it's New York, whether it's South Carolina, whether it's Baltimore with Freddie Gray, what we see in South Africa right now, even the students at Yale University and Ivy League school, very prestigious, the black students are protesting there. The youth recognize that the adults are not going to do it. They recognize that the adults.
Yeah, Kevin, can you hang up on Ayo's line for us? Because we're getting some feedback there. Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Umar.
Okay. Yeah, so the youth are recognizing that the adults are somewhat timid about making change. We got to recognize something, too. The youth were largely the foundation of many of our struggles. When you look at Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, not that he was alone, okay, but he was in his 20s when the Montgomery bus boycott took effect. When we look at Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, SNCC, CORE, they were college-age students. Remember now, during the Black Power generation, it was the college the American social order deliberately created the black bourgeoisie cliques on America's university. So what we see today is a return of the black college student as one of the major catalysts and agents of change for black people. So I welcome this. It is necessary, it is relevant, and it is showing that the youth are really ready to take back over the struggle, because that's the way it used to be anyway. The youth bring the change. And so I'm glad they're doing what they're doing, because this is really going to help destabilize the move to turn every college-educated black person into a member of the bourgeoisie. So I like what's happening. I think it's going to spread, and America is going to have to come up with a way to deal with this, because this isn't students in the inner city. This isn't students who are protesting against Freddie Gray or Michael Brown. Okay, these are the college-educated students. So you can't try to put a false descriptor on them and say that they're thugs or they're walking around with their pants sagging, they don't go to school, they just want to loot and burn, they're not interested in anything constructive, which would not be true anyway for those youth. Let me clarify. But the fact this is being led by the college student neutralizes the argument from the media that likes to paint our young people with a very distasteful image.
Is the same thing for Black Lives Matter?
Well, Black Lives Matter, I'm somewhat, there's two different Black Lives Matter. There's the popular unorganized movement of Black Lives Matter, the hashtag itself, and then there's the Black Lives Matter movement, which is founded by the lesbians and the feminist groups. Now, the grassroots Black Lives Matter movement, which was actually started in Ferguson, I had an opportunity to converse with the brothers and sisters who originally founded Black Lives Matter, and it was later hijacked by the popular group with that title now. So, I support the Black Lives Matter campaign, but I'm not particularly a supporter of the Black Lives Matter organization because when I read their platform, to me, Carl, it appears that that Black Lives Matter organization is a very Machiavellian and strategic way of forcing the homosexual agenda and the feminist agenda onto the Black revolutionary struggle. To me, it's an attempt to merge or co-opt RBG with LBGT.
Right, and I've heard that before. So how do we differentiate between them, though?
Well, the same thing, the same conversations I had to have in France and Manchester and South Africa because they're dealing with these other isms. The one thing white supremacy does, Carl, they have to always make sure that the Black agenda is never primary. They have to. Same thing you see what's going on now with the protesting of race. They're going to have to try to co-opt that with something else. There must always be another minority issue that's considered more critical than the Black agenda, always. So feminism was a strategy to push the Black agenda off the top of the list of priorities. Homosexuality was a strategy to push the Black agenda off the top of the list of priorities. Multiculturalism is another one of those strategies. So Black people got to recognize that our primary issue is as Black people, not as feminists, not as gays, not as multiculturalists, but as African people. That's important because once we elevate these other movements to the same level of respect as our own, we diminish our legacy. Homosexuals wasn't forced into slavery, okay? Latinos weren't codified to be less than human beings. See, Carl, people forget something. Black people, our struggle has been different from everyone else's because not only do we have to fight against oppression, we had to fight to be human beings. And that's the one stage that people forget. Black people had to fight to be human first before we could fight for equality. We had to fight to be human before we could fight for freedom. That's something that the homosexual, the Latino, the Mexican, the feminist never had to undergo. So nobody can compare the struggle of Black people with the struggle with anyone else.
Oh, that's some real talk. 800-450-7876. Go to line 3. Brother Bob is calling us from Syracuse, New York. Brother Bobby?
Peace and Black Power. I'd like to thank you, Brother Carl, for allowing me to be on your show. I don't have very much to say other than big shout out to my attorney and big brother, attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz, who I've known for a long time. And in the spirit of Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, this brother has been working feverishly. This is nothing new. I can remember nearly 20 years ago when Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad used to come in to D.C. and Malik Zulu would organize a Black Friday and go around to all of the stores, the Asians, whites, and alike that were taking our people's money and actually shut a lot of these businesses down, if not shut them down, have an effect. So Malik Zulu, I just want to say in short that Malik Zulu comes from a long line, for those that don't know, of this struggle, and he has my support to the utmost, and I will work with him in whatever capacity that he needs me to do, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for your call. Brother Bauer calling us from Syracuse, New York. I guess it's Dr. Umar Johnson. If I remember, he's the Director Senator of Frederick Douglass. Dr. Umar, the school that you're trying to build, how far along are we now?
Well, one thing that was interesting about the South Africa tour was the fact that South Africa would also be an excellent ground for an FDMG academy. So that's something that we're going to be looking at there as well. they're very, very serious about having the school built there as well. But, of course, Ghana and Nigeria, definitely still remain other African countries that I'm interested in. I mean, my thing is, as I share with the brothers in South Africa, same thing in Paris, the brothers and sisters in France. That, hey,
hold that thought right there, because we got to take a quick break. When we come back, I know we talk about the school, but can we have satellite campuses in these different countries? Or is that something? I'll let you respond to that. Is that something that you're considering? Folks, you too can join this discussion with Dr. Umar Johnson. Reach out to us 14 away from the top of the hour. Our number is 800-450-7876. Your call's next. It's a big show. It rolls on from the capital city on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Moving today or tomorrow and not sure who to call? Well, your worries are over. Ted's Moving and Hauling at 301-254-8221 is your one-stop place to call when you need to move from your apartment, home, or office. Ted's Moving and Hauling is one of the best, with experience and professional movers to handle all your needs with no job too large or too small. Ted's can do it all. Call now to find out more. 301-254-8221. That's 301-254-8221. Need something hauled away? Ted can do that too. Ted's Moving and Hauling is one of the best, and with some of the best prices in town. So, if you need to move uptown, downtown, or out of town, call Ted's Moving and Hauling today at 301-254-8221. That's 301-254-8221. That's Ted's Moving and Hauling, moving you from your home, office, or church. Call Ted's today at 301-254-8221.
Harbor Point Wealth Management assists retirees and pre-retirees in the creation of retirement strategies utilizing insurance products to provide guarantees backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. We are not affiliated with the U.S. government or any governmental agency.
Are you confident that you won't outlive your savings during retirement? Studies have shown that outliving their money in retirement is the #1 concern of most retirees. Karen Scott Mims, ESQ of Harbor Point Wealth Management, can help. She can offer a retirement income analysis that will answer your questions about retirement, including, will I have enough money to last? Will my spouse have enough money if I pass away? What rate of return will I need to average to avoid running low on money? And what impact would another downturn have on my retirement income? To get your income analysis, call Karen today, 866-621-6660, to receive your complimentary retirement income analysis. Call today, 866-621-6660.
Hi, this is Karen Scott Mims. If you're interested in tax-efficient retirement planning, give us a call at 866-621-6660.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
Okay, here goes. I know more about cooking dinner for a party of 12 than I do about packing a lunch for a 12-year-old. I know kids like things like PB&J, pigs in a blanket. Oh, and fish sticks. They do love fish sticks. Fillets I get, but sticks? What part of the fish does the stick come from? I know I can read a cookbook that'll tell me how to make a red wine reduction, but where are the cookbooks that can teach me how to cut the crusts off bologna sandwiches? Oh, maybe we can compromise on mac and cheese. Can you make that with brie? Everybody likes brie, right?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to push your food around their plate. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit AdoptUsKids.org for more information. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
Real talk radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
This thing was 11 away from the top of the hour with Dr. Umar Johnson. 800-450-7876 gets you in to speak to him. Dr. Umar, before we left for the break, you were telling us about the school. As we know, you're trying to build a school here, but then I know you've had overtures from people overseas. But when you finish, tell us about the update on the school. How can we, if people want to donate to help you build a school for black boys, tell us how we can get involved.
Certainly. If they want to donate, 2 ways they can do that, actually 3. One is they can go to GoFundMe.com/Dr. Umar, GoFundMe.com/DRUMAR. They can also mail in their donation, check them on their order payable to FDMG Academy, which can be sent to P.O. Box 6872, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19132. And the third way, call us to come to any one of my events. There's always donation envelopes available at any of the events we'll have tonight here in Troy, Alabama, at Troy University Saturday, at St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, and again Sunday in Newark, New Jersey at the Source of Knowledge bookstore. So they can always donate on site. They can mail it in. They could also do it on GoFundMe.com. And to answer your question about satellites, here's the thing with education, Carl. You have to be very clear. At least I do. Many of the people who operate these homeschool networks, they're not educators in a traditional sense, as I am. So having been a principal, having run a school, I have a little bit more insight into how this thing needs to be done than someone who simply learns on their own how to do it through trial and error, which I certainly support. But when you deal with education, the curriculum, Carl, cannot be separated from the person who implements the curriculum. We hear a lot about curriculum this, curriculum that. Curriculum is only what you intend to teach. But when you deal with education, Carl, there's what you intended to teach. That's the curriculum. There's what you actually taught. That's the lesson plan. And then there's actually what was learned by the child, and that's the acquisition of the new information. So the curriculum itself means nothing. What ultimately matters is how much the child learns and who is the connection between the curriculum and the acquisition of information from the child. That is the teacher, you see. So as I always say, if I have to choose between an excellent curriculum and horrible teachers, or excellent teachers and a horrible curriculum, give me the excellent teachers, because the excellent teachers will transform the horrible curriculum into one that works because they want the children to learn. So I see more information being paid to the curriculum than actually to the person who's responsible for what I want to say, processing that curriculum into digestible chunks of information in order that the children learn it. Lesson planning is key, Carl. It is the lesson plan that is the work of art that the teacher develops, that takes this curriculum, what we want the children to learn, and they transform it into digestible quantities of information. Teachers is what matters. So giving my curriculum to different schools or different black communities around the world, to me, that's a recipe for disaster, because it's only going to work if I supervise it, number one, and number two, with the right staff. Once we build the first school, we can then do the satellite. But to do the satellites before I have the first school, that's a recipe for disaster. Curable teachers will make the best curriculum look like it's nonsense.
Are you still looking for teachers?
Certainly. People can send their resumes in. We've gotten about, 1,500 already from around the world, but they can send their resumes through FDMG resumes with an S at gmail.com. FDMG resumes at gmail.com.
And FD, Frederick Douglass, MG, Marcus Garvey. That's what the initials are for. Correct?
Yes, sir.
800-450-7876. Go to line 1. Carl's calling us from Battle Creek, Michigan, home of Kellogg's. Carl, are you still with us?
This is Dale.
Dale, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, calling from the Kellogg Foundation, Kellogg Company Plantation here in Battle Creek, Michigan. Had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Johnson last year in Detroit up at the bookstore in Northland Mall. And in the event, 2 quick points. One to talk about as far as the subject of Mandarin being introduced to South Africa and Nigeria. That's just part of their 6,000-year plan to go ahead and create a secondary buffer caste of either Chinese Nigerians or Chinese South Africans that are loyal to the mother tongue and also loyal to China. In regards to the Buy Black campaign or the blackout, the problem that we have in terms of keeping money in our hands is almost like a diabetic problem in terms of not putting sugar in their coffee. It's like they almost can't help themselves. Well, one way to go ahead and to make it easier would be, say, for example, there's 10 holidays through the year. Well, instead of celebrating the holidays as they're currently set up on the dates that are in place now, we'll shift it by a month. Create our own holidays and just go ahead and spend money, like 30 days away from each holiday that's currently established. That way, it will be able to show black people that it can work, and it will disrupt the shipping patterns and manufacturing patterns of what's going on in this country. That way, once we find out that it can work and that our black dollars can have an impact, then it'll be much more easier for us to go ahead and say, well, now we're going to target companies specifically, as well as spend our money on days different than when the general population spends their money. So just a suggestion, and I'd like to get some feedback from Dr. Umar as far as what he thinks about that. And as always, Carl, doing a great job, and I'm out.
Certainly. Two quick points. Three quick points. Number one, China is overpopulated, so the country itself is looking for any type of outside territory where they can send their excess population to. Africa is ideal because not only does Africa have a lot of land that's not even being used, at the same time they can send in their agents of capitalism to investigate and invest into the different industries that are in Africa to end up making Africa the newest colony of China. The third Cold War that's taking place right now is between the United States of America and China, for who's ultimately going to control the destiny of South Africa. You see, so African people got to be very careful about this neo-colonialism because it doesn't make any sense to fight off white colonialism, which we've done for the past 50 years, to only exchange white colonialism for Chinese colonialism. Also in Africa, the Arab and the Indian, which are basically the same people, they're also making significant headways. When I was in South Africa, I saw Hindu temples, that were larger than any masjid that I've ever seen. And we also saw the Arab mosque coming to South Africa. So everybody's trying to take over South Africa except black people because we don't even want anything to do with Africa, many of us. The other thing, Carl, while I was in South Africa, the abortion. They're pushing the World Health Organization, Planned Parenthood International. They're pushing a serious campaign of abortion and hysterectomy in South Africa. Literally. I don't think a day went by in South Africa, no matter where I was, whether it was Durban, Cape Town, Joburg, Pretoria. I don't think a day went by where I didn't see at least 20 different abortion signs in South Africa. I've never seen that many abortion signs in a single place, more than I find in America or anywhere else I've been, including Nigeria and Senegal. So clearly they're trying to reduce the population of South Africa, and it's no coincidence that the AIDS rate in the southern part of Africa, which includes Botswana, Zimbabwe, and, of course, the Republic itself, is one of the highest in the world. They're injecting brothers and sisters with AIDS there. And recently, while I was there was something that came out on the news or in the newspaper that talked about how during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, where basically if you participated in apartheid, all you had to do was admit what you did and you could go free, which is interesting. But there were doctors who said that even after apartheid was over, that they were participating into certain types of biological warfare on African people. This was after 1990.
Hold that thought right there, Dr. Umar. We got to take a quick break. We have a traffic update. Then we'll come back and I'll let you finish up on that question. 800-450-7876. You too can join the discussion with Dr. Umar Johnson, the most requested speaker on the circuit today. Take your calls after this traffic update on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning. This traffic update is brought to you by Jiffy Lube. Delays continue now on the outer loop of the Beltway through Prince George's County, beginning from Andrews as you head up past 50 and continuing on toward 95. The disabled vehicle still in the center lane at Colesville, and that's causing major issues as you're trying to get in towards Silver Spring. 395 northbound, stop and go from the Beltway as you head up toward Etzel and continuing up and over the 14th Street Bridge. Discover the value of Jiffy Lube's signature service oil change. Not just an oil change, Jiffy Lube checks vital fluids, tire pressure, lights and wipers, and even vacuums the interior. This weather update is brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council. If you're dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for advice and support. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council. Today, mostly cloudy, showers around later, highs reaching the mid-60s. Tonight, clear and breezy, lows near 50. Right now, it's 53 degrees. I'm Tony Thornton for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Hey, listen, next time you're hungry, stop by Tori's Restaurant. That's right, Northwest V Street and Georgia Avenue, right across the street from Howard University Hospital. Tori's Restaurant. Tori's Restaurant. Now, if you like good food, then this is where you need to be. Tori's Restaurant. They got breakfast all day, low country cuisine, also lump crab cakes, short ribs, and a whole lot more. And they got this daily special. Mondays, Ask the Chef Day. Wednesday, beef liver with onions and gravy. Thursday, meatloaf with gravy. Friday, fried whiting with hush puppies. 2 sides, bread, iced tea, lemonade, or mix. Ask about our catering service, too. Call ahead for carryout. 202-462-3700. Tori's Restaurant, 700 B Street at Georgia Avenue, Northwest D.C. Right in front of Howard University Hospital. That's Tori's Restaurant, 202-462-3700.
When the need arises for a funeral repast or a place to hold a memorial service for your loved one, call the New Horizon Hall of Elegance, located at 2209 Vernon Street, Mount Rainier, Maryland. They will take the worry out of you having to handle one more detail, giving you time to focus on family and friends. Call 301-277-5922 to find out more. That's 301-277-5922. That's the New Horizon Hall of Elegance, ready to serve you in your time of need.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I liked things to always be the same. Anything new or different would scare and upset me. I was very sensitive to lights and sounds. It was almost like I had bigger eyes and ears than everyone else. So I built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. I didn't like looking people in the eye. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'd throw big tantrums over little things like when my socks didn't match. Sometimes I do the same things over and over. Until one day, I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
WOL Washington, WPRS HD2 Waldorf, WKYS HD2 Washington, WNMJ HD2 Bethesda, celebrating 35 years of service to the community, where information is power.
The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show
on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
Extending this, I guess, is Dr. Umar Johnson. We've got folks all over the country want to speak to you, Dr. Umar. He's just back from a trip to the UK, from France, and also from Azania, South Africa. And before we left, he was telling about the Chinese influence, or influx, if you will, in South Africa. Dr. Umar, let me see how I can put this. When GIs left Vietnam, they left a lot of children there. Have we seen the intermingling of Chinese and Africans? Do we have a lot of biracial children on the continent now?
In South Africa, they still have that population known as the coloreds, who are largely concentrated in Cape Town, but they're around the country. These are the biracial Africans, whereas in America, we really do not have a structural identity. Well, actually, we do now, because you now have the biracial, the multiracial categories now. But in South Africa, they've had that for a long time, the coloreds. And these colored people, who are nothing but Africans with white parents, consider themselves different, and many instances better than the indigenous all-black African of unmixed stock. And this colored population, just like our educated population here, has been used as a buffer population by the white power structure to kind of keep the black underclass in line. So we see that. Now, as it relates to Chinese in particular, I don't see a lot of mixed race African Chinese in South Africa, but I do see it in Nigeria. In Nigeria, there's a very concentrated effort by Chinese men to marry African women. This is America.
Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
I understand that it's 15 after the hour with Dr. Umar Johnson. But Dr. Umar is also a child psychologist. So, Dr. Umar, Linda mentioned that she told her children at a young age that, the whole thing about the fantasy of Santa Claus and Christmas. And now we have this black boycott going on, boycott Christmas, I guess, boycott Black Friday Day going on. So for the people who have not engaged and have children and grandchildren, because it seems a little bit worse when they have grandchildren, what do they tell their children? Because, peer pressure is tremendous.
Well, here's the issue, Carl. What happens a lot of times is we raise our children within the Eurocentric holiday tradition, and then we become conscious, and then we pull them away from it. That's why many of them can feel alienated psychologically, because you allow them to participate in the poison, and then at a certain point, you pull them back away from the poison, which is necessary. But the way in which we can insulate our children from having any aftershock from being divorced from the European holiday tradition is to not let them participate in it at all. This is also why it's important to have independent African-centered schools and independent African-centered community centers, so that African children who do not participate in the European holiday tradition can participate in the African cultural reality with other African children. They need that support, because it doesn't matter how much a child understands why the parents are not participating in the European holiday tradition. If they are isolated, which means they don't have other children that they can turn to who are actually participating in the same socialization reality that they're participating in, they are going to suffer. So number one, you have to make sure your child has a social system. Do they have cousins, brothers and sisters other children in the neighborhood whose parents are also conscious, okay, who can divert their attention to more positive activities while everyone else is worshiping like Jesus. So you got to make sure you try to have that social support. A lot of times, Carl, we don't make sure our children have that social support. And even when they understand why they don't do Christmas or Thanksgiving or New Year's, it can still be a painful experience because there's no social support around those youth. So it's important to make sure the child is surrounded by conscious African children who can help distract them from that reality as they participate in their own. The other thing, Carl, when we deal with the boycott piece, 3 issues that always come up with it. Number 1, you have the holiday season. So we boycott the holiday season. But we also have to boycott the holiday rush for sales immediately after Christmas is past. You know, the day after Christmas, in many respects, can be a bigger shopping day than so-called Black Friday, because what happens is everyone rushes into the store for the after Christmas sale. So it's not just about boycott the holiday shopping season. You also have to boycott the post-holiday shopping extravaganza, and then you have to boycott the Kwanzaa extravaganza, because although by design the gifts that are given in Kwanzaa are supposed to be handmade, truth of the matter is people spend just as much money during Kwanzaa as they spend during Christmas, so something has to be said about the Kwanzaa. Because if you separate the Christmas from the Kwanzaa, you'll have a situation where Black people do not buy for Christmas, but then they will turn around and spend all the money they didn't spend on Christmas. They will spend it in the post-shopping holiday rush and then also for Kwanzaa. We got to realize that Kwanzaa, in many respects, has become an extension of Christmas. Most of the money that's made of selling Kwanzaa products are made by white department stores, not Black bookstores. Speaking of Black bookstores, someone earlier mentioned the Truth Bookstore in Detroit, but guess what? They're no longer there. And then there's the bookstore in Dallas. I forget the name of it, but the major Black bookstore in Dallas, I just saw yesterday, they was forcibly evicted from where their bookstore was located. So there's been a war against the Black bookstores. So we have to take that money and spend it in Black bookstores and Black businesses and not use Kwanzaa dollars to support the European economic reality. That has been one of our biggest contradictions with Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is making money for white people. Kwanzaa is not making money for Black people. It is Christmas part 2 when viewed from an economic standpoint.
19 after. That's Real Talk. 800-450-7876. Go to line 2. Don's in D.C. Don, you're on with Dr. Umar. You have a question or a comment?
Yeah, Dr. Johnson, I'm going to put you on my house deed for a school. You and Dr. Wells and Claude Anderson and possibly Claude Anderson. Now, let me get to my point. Leave your number with Kevin. Brother Kwame Survey from Stokely Carmichael on his deathbed or dying words were organized. My critique of the Million Man March 20 years ago, it could have been effective if certain prominent people could have spoken. Dr. Wellesley, Neely Fuller, Claude Anderson, and should have called for blackouts and I don't say boycotts, blackouts, man-cots on holidays before being reactionary to killing us 20 years later today. The minister sounded weak and not forceful at the end, asking for speaking on blackouting material Christmas. I've heard him over the radio talking out on putting his life on the line or dying for certain principles. Surah 19 out of the Quran and going home and making up with your family members and relatives, mostly all groups come together to support white supremacy, the rich and the poor. Can you respond to that, sir? Leave your number with Kevin, because I'm going to leave y'all in my house. I'm 71 years old. I'm over in Ward 5, and there's a lot of there's some black schools and stuff up on Kennedy Street Northwest, and y'all can get together, and I'm still going to pay my mortgage. Maybe we can give. I only owe $79,000 on it. It's a $250,000 house. You can put something in the yard, a school in the backyard, and carry on with that. That's what I want to, because you are very, very intelligent.
All right, thanks, Don. We'll pass on Kevin will pass your number on to Dr. Umar. Dr. Umar.
Yes, as it relates to the Million Man March, I was there. I supported in principle. I thought that was important for me to do. The position that I had within the community, I think it's very important that I be very selective with any public criticism that I give a leader. I think that there was benefits to it. I think that it was good for African people to be around other African people and to show support. We've been through a lot the past couple of years. Obviously, a lot of black people are dealing with the psychological aftershocks of President Obama, who they thought was some sort of savior, who's actually turned out to be one of the biggest silent supporters of this new wave of racism against people. So for psychological and social reasons and reasons of support, I think that it was very, very relevant and necessary for Africans to come together in their own space and time and just fellowship with one another, because we've been through a lot. On the political economic spectrum, I don't really know what has come out of it. I'm a little concerned that it may have potentially suffered the same failure as the original Millionaire March was, and that is having no real plan of political economic follow-up for at least 10 years. So on that side of things, I still have to be reluctant, because I don't know what the minister of the Nation of Islam is planning in that regard, and I want to be respectful of time. This things don't happen overnight, but I do hope that we see something soon, because if we went down to D.C. just for another day of fellowship without any serious political economic agenda, given the state of Black America, then many people may end up considering failure. But I do think we got to be, again, reserved, give an opportunity to bring that plan to the forefront. I was contacted this morning by someone with the Million More movement, so I'm interested in hearing more about what they're trying to do. But as we go forward, Carl, I think the next time we have a large gathering like that, it does not need to be in the nation's capital. I'm not sure why D.C. is the place where we always have to come to. From a strategic standpoint, I would like for us to occupy a predominantly Black section of the country or predominantly Black cities. We have places where everybody who lives in the town is almost exclusively Black. They're not very large cities. Okay, they're not major cities, but you got cities with nothing but Black businesses, nothing but Black restaurants in them. So next time we decide to occupy a town, it should not be the nation's capital. It should be a Black town. So we can get Black.
That's a good point, Dr. Umar. Hang on right there, because we got to take a quick break. 800-450-7876. Speak to Dr. Umar Johnson. Take your calls at 25 after the hour, right here on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
What's wrong, Tina? Where are you coming from?
I am just coming from the dealership, getting my Mercedes-Benz service. Do you know it cost me $500?
$500? Girl, you should have gone to Magic Benz in Hyattsville. Their A services are only $250, and B services start at just $250. They are my premier specialists and have up to 40% off dealer prices and 100% satisfaction guarantee.
But how did I miss this?
But there's more. They offer professional services, tire replacement, balance and rotation, engine cooling system flush, body work for all Mercedes, and more. Their oil changes are only $99.
Michelle, say no more. What's their info?
It's Magic Benz at 4716 Baltimore Avenue, Hyattsville, Maryland. Their number is 301-985-2676, or go to their website at magicbenzservice.com. Thank me later.
No, I am thanking you now.
Those of us who were around in the 50s and 60s struggling, many of us have gotten tired, and we let the enemy have his way. Well, I did my best, they'll say, and you all take it now. I'm just going to sit down and relax or retire. I have never seen a lion retire from being a lion. I may not bite as hard as I used to, but I can still bite.
Don't miss the Farrakhan Speaks broadcast this and every Sunday at 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. right here on WOL 1450 AM, where information is power. That's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on the air this Sunday at 8 a.m. If you missed last Sunday's message, you have to hear him this Sunday. Don't miss it.
Real Talk Radio in the AM.
The #1 morning show. #1 on everybody list.
Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
And thank you for staying with us. Our guest is Dr. Umar Johnson. Dr. Johnson, most of you know, is a direct descendant of Frederick Douglass. He's the Prince of Pan-Africanism, a Garveyite. His best-selling book is The Psycho-Academic War Against the Black Boys. and he's coming to a city near you. Before we go, we'll let him tell you where he's going to appear. And if you hear him, folks, you need to go out and see him, because a lot of things that we talk about on the radio, you can talk about in person, but you just can't talk about it over the airways, especially on commercial radio. 800-450-7876 gets you want to speak to him. Let's go to line 1. Jim's in D.C. Jim, you have a question or a comment for Dr. Umar?
So,
Jim, can you speak up for us? I'm sorry, we can't hear Jim. So let's keep moving. Let's go to line 6. Stacy's in D.C. Stacy?
Good morning, Dr. Umar. I'm not going to hold you, honey. I just want to ask you to please mention this at your speeches. Number one, the Democrats, we having a political election next year. And Dr. Johnson, the Democratic Party is promoting this homosexuality. Under the guise of marriage equality, they're promoting this as something to be proud of. That two men having sex is marriage equality. That's marriage abomination. And I would like for you to talk about that to the people, because the black people are in love with the Democratic Party, and I don't understand that. Don't get me wrong. Now, the Republican Party, one thing I will say, they are not promoting this filth. And we are no worse for wear under the Republican Party, as the Democrats haven't done anything for us. But anyway, I'd like for you to mention that. Also, too, Dr. Umar, they're bringing in transgender now. Like you said, they're always co-opting everything with us. They're putting in transgenders. So the Democrats, they're talking about the LGBT call, and they want men to be going to the bathroom with us women. And I would like for you to talk about how the Democratic Party is promoting this lifestyle, and we'll be voting on it next year.
All right. Thank you, Stacey. Dr. Umar?
Well, one thing I'm an advocate of, I don't think we need to belong to any white parties, be it the Green Party, Democrat, or Republican. We don't need a black political party. We need black power. That's what we need. As far as this homosexual agenda, as I've always taught, for over a decade now, this is part of the population control strategy. One thing in South Africa that President Nelson Mandela and his successor, President Thabo Mbeki, does, although they did not get the wealth redistributed to black people, both of them were instrumental in legalizing homosexuality and equating gay marriage with traditional African marriage. They did that in South Africa. We recognize that there's a war against the black family, and that war is to eliminate the procreation. They want to so far distance black women from black men, and so far distance black men from black women that we don't even touch each other. That's what this whole thing is about. It's about eliminating the African population by making it unpopular to want to even engage in traditional black family structure. But this goes back to the school call. If we allow our children to get this type of a diet, where now kindergarten, first and second grade African children are being taught about the sanctity.
Yes, they are. They are, Dr. Umar. All I'm saying is that the Democratic Party is promoting it, honey. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
No, I agree with you, but it's not just the Democratic Party. The American social order is promoting it in general. There's a push, and it's a global push. It's in France, it's in Amsterdam, it's in the UK, it's everywhere. But this goes back to cultural imperialism. The oldest people in the world, which is the African, has the business allowing the youngest people in the world, which is the European, to dictate to us how we should operate family, which is why I do support the African heads of state, Uganda and some other places, Robert Mugabe, who have straight up told President Obama in the United States of America that we do not believe in homosexuality, and you will not come in my country and tell me what a family is and what a family is not.
But what about all these black men who are being effeminized? They're so sissy. There's so many sissy black men out here, Dr. Umar. It's really sad. And I've got black children I'm trying to raise, black males.
Right. Well, one of the issues is that the alpha male, the alpha black male, is the most despised human being on the face of the earth.
Absolutely.
No one appreciates an alpha black male. And so they have so created a culture out of the effeminized black male personality. And that is now a personality of preference, where they want African boys to effeminize themselves as to appear non-threatening, so they can be more easily absorbed into the status quo.
But Dr. Umar,
let me ask you this, Dr. Umar. Why do you think that South Africa is the only country on the continent that's for homosexuality? What's going on there? The other nations are not going for it.
They're not the only one. No, homosexuality is making headways in Ghana. Homosexuality is making headways in a lot of places. in South Africa, in the continent of Africa. No, homosexuality is, in fact, you have more heads of state who have not spoken in support of traditional African marriage than who have. The African heads of state who are speaking up against homosexuality are few, Carl. I do believe that nearly all of them do not support homosexuality, but most of them are afraid and intimidated because what Obama is doing, along with the World Health Organization, Planned Parenthood, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, they are threatening to eliminate financial aid to any African country who does not legitimize homosexual or lesbian marriage. So they want to speak out against it, but most of them are afraid to because it can affect their economic bottom line.
Wow. 800-450-7876, 28 away from the top of the hour. Line 4, Kashiba's joining us from Silver Spring. Kashiba, you're on with Dr. Umar.
Hello, Carl. Great show as usual. I want to piggyback upon an earlier caller because I did not hear all of what she said. It has to do with holiday non-spending. As a grandmother, it's difficult to say to small children, I'm not giving you any presents, we're not spending any money. So I have an alternative suggestion. I think an earlier caller talked about it. Buy black books from black bookstores or black websites or books authored by black people. And then commit yourself to reading the books to the children and discussing the books and also having some activities centered around that discussion. I have a suggestion just for 3 books, but unfortunately these books that I'm suggesting are all the primary actor in the book is a female, but I'm certain, there are tons more. The 3 authors are Tanya Bolden, Geraldine Nolan, and Calvin Alexander Ramsey. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Calvin Alexander Ramsey, he wrote the book called Ruth and the Green Book. That talks about a little girl going down south, traveling with her family, and all the problems that they encountered along the way. One of them, which I encountered...
Right. Kashiba, do us a favor. Could you put in a question for him? Because we're running out of time. We're racing the clock. We've got a bunch of folks want to speak to Dr. Umar.
My question is, in terms of alternative spending, what would you suggest? Just simply withholding all your money, or alternatives, especially if you want to do something for children only?
Okay. Here's the thing. Black businesses, just like black organizations, have to become better organized for themselves, with themselves, and each other before we can target the African American population. Black businesses are not organized with each other. For example, if I'm in...
Hold that example right there, Dr. Umar. We got to step aside for I think we got the news coming up. Folks, you too can join our discussion with Dr. Umar Johnson. Just reach out to us at 800-450-7876. Your call's next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Good morning, I'm Mike Fortier. Here's the latest from News1.com, brought to you in part by the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. Each day, more than 1.6 million Americans suffer with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. Support the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America to help and to find cures at ccfa.org. President Obama will award the Medal of Honor to a U.S. Army veteran and University of Maryland grad today. In a White House ceremony, Captain Flo Groberg will receive the nation's highest military award for heroism in Afghanistan in 2012. Groberg, credited with saving the lives of fellow troops during an ambush in the Kunar province. Groberg badly injured in the attack. He'll be the 10th living recipient to be awarded the Medal of Honor for actions in Afghanistan. Groberg, a naturalized U.S. citizen born in France and raised in Montgomery County. President Obama honoring America's veterans in a Veterans Day ceremony yesterday at Arlington National Cemetery. The president says vets represent an unbroken chain of patriots throughout the history of the U.S. Obama singles out World War II vets for special praise, saying they literally saved the world. He argues the government has an obligation to care for veterans throughout their lives. Obama also calls on private businesses to hire more veterans. He says veterans can perform multiple tasks under pressure and they get stuff done. Veterans letting the White House know how they feel about medical marijuana. Dozens of servicemen and women marching in D.C. yesterday dumped a large box of empty pill containers, calling on officials to make medical marijuana available to veterans. The group argues VA hospitals are over-medicating veterans with a large number of psychoactive medications to treat PTSD. Martin O'Malley will make history just by having dinner. The former Maryland governor will have dinner at the home of a family headed by illegal immigrants in Texas. Immigrants' rights groups say O'Malley will be the first presidential candidate to ever sit down with a family headed by illegal immigrants. This report brought to you in part by the Foundation for a Better Life. Winston Churchill's words stirred his country in the face of defeat. Today they inspire us to reach for our own victories. Commitment, pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com. I'm Mike Fortier. When you're looking for news for Black America, go to newsone.com.
Good morning. This WOL traffic update is brought to you by the Foundation for a Better Life. Southbound on 295, slowing from Eastern Avenue to Pennsylvania Avenue, but everything is open. Around the Beltway, still looking at delays on the outer loop northbound from Ritchie Marlboro Road off and onto the VW Parkway, then from College Park to Silver Spring. New York Avenue still heavy, heading inbound from South Dakota Avenue to Bladensburg Road, and then from Brentwood Parkway most of the way into Northwest down to the 3rd Street Tunnel. In the 3rd Street Tunnel northbound, it's still slowing off and on from the freeway to the end of the tunnel at New York Avenue. Winston Churchill's words stirred his country in the face of defeat. Today they inspire us to reach for our own victories. Commitment, pass it on from the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com. Now your WOL weather forecast for today. Rain moving through, then becoming partly cloudy this afternoon with a high near 65. Clear overnight tonight down to 48 for a low, and for tomorrow, sunny and windy and a high near 57. Steve Hirschhorn for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Your voice can now be heard.
Y'all ready?
Yeah. With Carl Nelson weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
Pan-Africanism is a Garveyite in his spirit, and his best-selling book is The Psychoacademic War Against Black Boys. He's trying to build a black school, black themed school for boys, and we're going to get more into that before he leaves. 800-450-7876, number to call to speak to him. But Dr. Umar, I'm going to let you finish up what you were saying before we left for the news update.
Yes, sir. One thing I wanted to say, Carl, to do my part as it relates to the holiday boycott is on so-called Black Friday, which I like to refer to White Friday, referred to as White Friday because most of the money goes to white businesses, not black ones. I will be doing a power presentation in Baltimore, Maryland at the Downtown Cultural Arts Center from 6 to 9. Doors open up at 5. So brothers and sisters who are trying to refrain from spending their money in supporting the buy black and the blackout of the holiday shopping season, please come on out to Baltimore, Maryland, Friday, Friday, November the 27th, Downtown Cultural Arts Center in Baltimore. Anybody's interested in vending, because we do want to support and advertise black businesses. If anyone would like to be a vendor in Baltimore, Friday, November the 27th, so-called Black Friday, please send me an email or a text message, and we can set you up with a vendor table for a small fee in Baltimore. So that's what we're going to be doing Friday after next to counteract the holiday shopping frenzy. You can come into Baltimore, get some powerful information. We're going to talk, dialogue, and plot our way forward. So I'm very much looking forward to coming back to Baltimore. My first visit since the rebellion there when I had a town hall meeting. So shout out to Baltimore, D.C. Can't wait to see you guys Friday after next.
All right, and you're going to give an email address?
Yes.
Folks who want to get involved?
Sure. They can email me through the website, drumarjohnson.com, or they can email me directly, drumarjohnson@yahoo.com, DRUMAR Johnson. No period, no space, one word, drumarjohnson@yahoo.com. And if they're on social network, they can also contact me through Instagram or Twitter at Dr. Umar Johnson, and on Facebook at Dr. Umar Ifatunde.
All right, 800-450-7876, and you can use those contacts. Those of you who want to get involved in the school, send your resumes as well. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, sir.
All right, 18 away from the top of the hour. Let's take some calls and folks want to speak to you. Line 3, Charles is in Chicago. Charles, you have a question or a comment for Dr. Umar?
Thank you very much, Carl, for taking my call. As I said, the baddest talk show host on this earth, and that would be an understatement. And thank you very much, Kathy Hughes. Dr. Johnson, it sure is a pleasure to converse with you this morning and listen to what you discovered there or witnessed there and on the continent. My question is going back to what you said earlier with how they're trying to co-opt Planned Parenthood on the continent of Africa and trying to destroy the black race for populating again. And do you think that, this is my question, I know there's a lot of politicians here in the States that are now going for Hillary Clinton. And they're going for Hillary Clinton big time and promoting her become the next president and so on and so forth. And she was an admirer of Margaret Sanger. She even said it, that she's in awe of her and she's basically the best thing that was ever created here in the United States as a person. But Margaret Sanger, as you well know, destroyed Africa, destroyed black folks here in the United States through the eugenics. And my question is, how do we navigate with this situation to get it out to the people, to our people, that Hillary Clinton is no good for us because her main agenda is to stay on that frequency because she accepted the Margaret Sanger Award in 2009.
All right, thanks,
Well,
Charles.
About it, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, she herself identified population control as the number one foreign and domestic threat to American interest, population control, which basically means so many black people being born. Now, this is where black women need to be very careful about the feminism that they're pushing, this whole women's rights piece, because this whole feminist thing that they're drafting a lot of our college level sisters into is designed to get them to be pro-abortion, pro-choice as a strategy to reducing the black population rate. One of the reasons why they're pushing higher education in Africa for black women isn't because they want black women to get educated, because there's not a lot of jobs for black people, period, male or female in Africa. But the research that's coming out of Planned Parenthood International, the World Health Organization, shows that the more educated African women become, the less interested they are in having children. So this is where feminism beats homosexuality and population control. But black women call themselves feminists, which I don't understand because it's a white woman's reality, not a black woman's reality. They need to really be careful because one of the roads of feminism, one of the agendas of feminism is to get the black feminists to accept population control for the black woman, hysterectomy, abortion, AIDS, the new HPV shot that they want to get the black female teenagers. They want them to take this shot in their cervix, allegedly to prevent cervical cancer. But there's research coming out of the Food and Drug Administration that shows a lot of these shots that they're giving out children, especially our girls, are designed to sterilize them from being able to get pregnant. So again, you got to be careful about taking part of white supremacy's package because you're going to end up being forced to take the whole package. But I do want to caution us against getting caught up into mainstream electoral politics. It doesn't matter if it's Hillary, it doesn't matter if it's Ben Carson, it doesn't matter if it's Donald Trump. None of them are in our best interest because whoever gets chosen is going to carry out the agenda of white supremacy. Freedom is not having the ability to choose. Freedom is not the ability to choose. Freedom is the ability to determine the options. Black people have never been given the ability to determine the options. They're only given the right to choose between two pre-selected options, both of which are going to support the dominant status quo of the society.
15 away from the top of the hour, 800-450-7876. If you want to speak to Dr. Umar, let's go to line one. Brother Arthur is calling us from Connecticut. Brother Arthur, your question or your comment for Dr. Umar?
Mayat Hotep, Brother Carl, and Dr. Umar Johnson, how are you?
Peace, brother.
Good, good. Dr. Umar, it's so good to hear your voice, and I'm glad that you were able to have a safe trip, and thank you for the update and information that you provide to us all the time. I really appreciate it. I want to just kind of add, not argue, one of the things that you mentioned about Kwanzaa and, that's coming up. As you know, Dr. Karinga always tells us about Kwanzaa, despite the negative capitalism that may surround it and try to penetrate and everything, that it's what we make it. And so that's why it's important to go back to, like, for instance, the preferred gifts of Kwanzaa, which is a book, which we can still find for our people, and then also something handmade. And then, of course, we can also go beyond that with black vendors, so forth and so on. So a lot of dollars can be transferred through that. It all depends on what we do. And you're right. We do need to be careful with white companies and corporations making Kwanzaa things that we should not be buying. So that's important. And, of course, UJAMA, cooperative economics. It's important for us to say that so our people understand that. And, so we support that. We can also support those principles all year long regardless of what religious group you're with. It's good for our people. And also, I just want to tell the family, please support Dr. Umar. In terms of the school, it's very important. We need it. We know he's a good brother. He's a good track record. And when are you going to be in the New York area again?
I will be in Newark, New Jersey, this Sunday. Source of Knowledge Bookstore. Doors open up at 1. I'll be speaking at 4 in Newark, New Jersey. That'll be the closest right now. And then I'll be in Newark again the very next day, Monday the 16th. Mayor Ross Baraka, son of a Barry Baraka, he invited me to come and speak to all the senior high school students, boys, senior high school, black young brothers in the Newark public high school system. So I'll be there for Sunday and Monday, but definitely Source of Knowledge, 4 o'clock on Sunday.
Thank you again so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brother Arthur. We're going to step aside for a couple of announcements and we're back and wrap up with Dr. Umar Johnson, 800-450-7876. Your call's next on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Looking for a caterer to cater your next event? One that's professional, prepares great tasting food, provides a professional staff, and will create tailor-made menus and services to fit your needs and budget, and so much more? Then you have to call A Touch of Class Caterers at 301-449-2082. For 18 years, A Touch of Class has been one of the Washington metropolitan area's premier caterers, providing you nothing but the best for your next event. So whether it's a wedding, rehearsal dinner, church function, repast celebration, or just a private dinner for two, and you want a little more class and elegance to make the day even more special, call A Touch of Class Caterers today at 301-449-2082 and let them take care of the intimate details. That's A Touch of Class Caterers, ready to handle your next event with a touch of class and elegance. Call them today, 301-449-2082, or log on to www.we-cater-2u.com.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson. The Sentinel Group with principal office in Temecula, California is responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisements. Services may not be available in all states. Attention women. If you or a loved one sustained injuries caused by transvaginal mesh, bladder mesh, pelvic sling, or bladder sling, you may be entitled to a cash award and compensation. The FDA issued a public notice to doctors and patients concerning injuries caused by transvaginal mesh, bladder mesh, pelvic slings, and bladder slings. Please call 800-617-8329 now. If you or a loved one has had one of these devices implanted, you may be entitled to a cash award and compensation. Time is limited. If you or a loved one's life has been affected by complications from transvaginal mesh, bladder mesh, pelvic sling, or bladder sling, you may be entitled to a cash award and compensation. Call 800-617-8329 now. Call 800-617-8329. Our toll-free phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-617-8329. That's 800-617-8329. Again, 800-617-8329.
As I went through school, one giant question loomed over me. What did I want to be? But in order to know what I wanted to be, I had to first decide what I wanted to make. I wanted to make more. So I became a teacher. Now I make learning a privilege, not a chore, and frustration a tool, not an obstacle. I make working hard seem easy, and giving up impossible. I make an old subject feel like a fresh thought, and unconventional methods common. I make material things less important, and little things like patience and kindness count. I make weekdays more exciting than weekends, and classrooms feel like anything but. I make things different, which is all I ever hoped for. I'm a teacher. I make more.
Find out how you can make more at teach.org. Make more. Teach. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
Real Talk Radio in the AM. Carl Nelson on 1450 WOL.
Just stay with us, folks. 9 away from the top of the hour. 800-450-7876 to speak to Dr. Umar Johnson. Let's go to line 2. Pittsburgh Mike, calling us from Columbus. Pittsburgh Mike, you're on with Dr. Umar. You have a question or a comment?
Thanks for taking my call, Brother Umar. Nothing but much love. Save our children. Keep doing that. The only thing that's sad is you hear these callers talking about who we should vote for. We can't understand to get out this system. Like maybe it's the older generation. We're still trying to vote for some people that never cared about us. I just want to say a Christmas suggestion.
Get the movie Farewell Uncle Tom, and the other movie Rabbit Proof Fence should be in every house. That's what I say. But Brother Umar, nothing but love, and save our children, man.
Thank you,
Dr.
my
Umar?
brother.
Dr. Umar, you still with us?
Agree with him. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So the you say you're part of this boycott Christmas, boycott Black Friday. The alternative, how are you going to get? Because one of the questions somebody asked before you got on was, how are you going to get this message to the young people, the people that are attracted to you, the hip hop generation? How are you going to reach them?
I don't think that's where your problem lies. I really think the young people are the most conscientious and activist-minded group that we have right now, despite all their flaws and limitations, which they have as a result of the conditioning and education that we gave them or allowed to be given to them. Shocking, not the youth. You got to realize something, Carl. Black youth are having a devastating economic time. A black youth is less likely to be employed than anyone else in this country. They would rather hire an illegal youth who doesn't even speak English, but they'll hire a black job. So our children don't have the money to go out and buy these things anyway. It's going to be their grandparents. It's going to be their aunts and uncles. It's going to be those with the college degrees. Those are the ones you're going to have to convince not to participate in the reality because they think that they made it. It's not the youth. That's the problem. It's going to be the adults. But to go back to what I said earlier, I think black business has to organize itself, Carl, to make it easier for black people to support black business. If you got one business on this corner of town, the next business another corner of town, third business still on another corner of town, in order for you to really get black people behind you, you're going to have to organize all these businesses and make it convenient. Once a month, all the black businesses in every city should have an event where black people know that on this day, every month, I can go to one place, one school, one church, one community center, and I can support all the black businesses in my city. But again, black businesses are engaged in petty differences. They're fighting with each other. Black bookstores are also disorganized. I really think black bookstores could have done a much better job of protecting black bookstores, but everyone's operating in isolation. How did the Koreans come in and take over the black hair care industry? Although I don't support permanent weaves, they were able to do it because the black hair care providers were competing with each other for dollars and cents, and the Koreans came in and saw this, and they simply exploited it for personal gain. How did the white man take Africa? When he came to Africa, Chancellor Williams talks about it very explicitly in Destruction of Black Civilization. Black people were already engaged in petty differences and tribal contentions, and the white man simply came in and exploited the pre-existing difference. So we got to recognize we have an issue as a people, separate from the white man, that deals with us not wanting to work together. As the brother said earlier, organization. We are known for not being organized. As the Korean man once told the black man when asked about why they don't sell beauty products and both the black people, the Korean man looked the black man in the face and said, y'all don't do business. Y'all do church. Y'all build church and leave the business up to us. That is our Achilles heel, and we have to change it.
Wow. I know we got to run because we're running out of time, but tell us how folks can, when they want to get involved with your school, how can they donate to the school, and how can they find out where you're going to be speaking next?
Certainly. All these speaking events are posted on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Of course, I'm in Troy University tonight in Alabama, Troy, Alabama, 6 to 9. Saturday, I'll be at St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's a 4 to 7 event, which is almost sold out. If you plan on going to that, you need to go to princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com and get your tickets because Raleigh is just about sold out. Then we got Source of Knowledge Bookstore in Newark, New Jersey, Sunday, 4 o'clock. Then we have California State University, Long Beach campus, the Black Consciousness Conference. I'll be keynoting that next Saturday, the 21st. And then I'll be at the Natural Black Hair Care and Health Expo, Killeen, Texas, Sunday, November the 22nd. And then, of course, Baltimore, Maryland, which will be my last stop before I go to Nigeria. And that's Friday, November the 27th, Boycott Black Friday with Dr. Umar Johnson in Baltimore, downtown Cultural Arts Center. Then I come back from Nigeria and we have our Kwanzaa tour. Houston, Atlanta, Tulsa, Detroit, Jackson, Mississippi. If anybody needs a flyer, they can text me, email me for it, donate to the school. And, of course, we got the Black Boy College tour coming up this summer.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Umar. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Dr. Umar Johnson. Folks, we're out of here. We have